This video is for the females out there who have ever felt silenced. Whether that is silence from somebody in your work, somebody in a relationship, somebody within your family, or even silenced by yourself. This is a message for you to understand that the silencing is all part of your bigger lesson and that you get to choose when you speak up. So often, and I speak from experience when I say this, so often we get conditioned into believing we shouldn't speak, or into believing that what we want to speak out loud is not accepted, or it's not okay for a female, or you shouldn't have as loud a voice as somebody else, or even that it's embarrassing. You should have shame around what you want to speak about. And I mean physically speaking out with your voice or having an opinion on something, or simply expressing yourself, your body, your personality, your soul in whatever way it is that you have in your life. When we get so shaped into this conditioning, when we get so, we trust and believe that the shame is real and the embarrassment is real and that we shouldn't speak, that is exactly what we end up creating in our lives. So much so that we then affirm the conditioning from our own beliefs. So we start to put that shame and embarrassment on ourselves. We start to put that, hiding away on ourselves. Nobody else is responsible for doing it anymore, but we are. We are doing it to ourselves. And that's purely because we've learned it in some kind of relationship or some kind of scenario early on in our life. And this can happen from childhood, this can happen later on in your life, this can be at any time in your life. But at some point, if you've learned that what you speak out or express is shameful, embarrassing, or you shouldn't do it, you will start to affirm it and believe it yourself. We do this because we're protecting ourselves, and we think that if we've been made to feel this way, then there's obviously a reason for it. And therefore, I should hide those parts of myself. I should neglect those parts of myself. I should pretend they don't exist. And I should pretend that I believe something else. And somebody else's truth then becomes your own. And that is ultimately the experience I went through. But what I'm here to tell you is that you are absolutely in charge of when you speak, how you express yourself, what your opinions are, what you have to say, how you have to say it, who you have to say it to. And you also get to choose to remove yourself from a situation where you feel that this is not possible. Now, there's layers to that, because where you feel that you're not able to express yourself fully usually requires a lot of work. And when you realize that there's layers to that, you can actually understand that you can express yourself in whatever environment you're in. However, there are places, there are environments, there are people that will not allow you to fully express yourself because they fear the judgment of that, or they feel the judgment of that. But you've got to understand that when you felt the shame and the embarrassment towards yourself, towards your own voice, towards your own expression, the only reason you felt that is because somebody has made you feel that way to start with. But what happens as a result of that is, if I'm now doing that to myself, I try and express myself in a certain way and it comes out wrong, and therefore I judge myself, or I don't even express myself to start with because there's shame and embarrassment there. Then you've got to understand, if we're doing that to ourselves, we're going to be doing that to other people. Which means when other people, especially if they directly mirror who we are, what we are, and how we present ourselves, or in other words, who we want to be, if other people express themselves in ways, even if it's not the same way we want to, we will judge them, we will shame them, we will feel embarrassed for them, and we might even sometimes put that judgment on them, because what we're doing to ourselves, shaming, embarrassment, and being fearful of expressing ourselves fully, what we do to ourselves, we do to others. So you've got to understand that if it's coming down to the environment of, I can't express myself because of this environment, or because of where I am, or because of who I'm around, you've got to understand that if it's because of their judgment on you, it's because they are judging themselves. They feel shame towards their own expression. They feel fear towards their own expression. They feel judgment and embarrassment towards their own expression. It is the only reason they would be doing it to you. Because through this journey of finding my own voice and understanding my own expression, this is exactly the lesson I've learned. And that is that the more I understand myself, the more I understand my truth and what I want to express, how I want to express it, it really does not matter who I say or express that around. Because whether they have that judgment on themselves and therefore that judgment on me is irrelevant if you've worked through the judgment you have of yourself. So often, and this is what I was doing, I would say things like, I have to remove myself from this environment, or these people, or this situation, or this workplace, or this whatever, in the hope that if I removed myself, I would be able to express myself fully, speak my truth fully, find my voice fully. But that didn't happen. And that didn't happen because it wasn't the environment that was the problem. It wasn't the external factors that was the problem. The problem was my inability to not judge myself, my inability to not feel shame around who I am or what I wanted to express. But when you remove yourself from that situation, you're removing what you think is the cause, but actually the core problem is still there, is that I have shame, embarrassment, or fear around fully expressing my truth and finding my voice. But when you understand and work through your own judgment, your own fears, your own embarrassment, and your own shame around what it is you have to express, when you work through that, you understand that the only reason that other people would put shame on you or create an environment where you feel you can't express yourself is because they too have shame on themselves. They too have embarrassment of their voice. They too are fearful of speaking their truth. This is a harsh truth in some ways, but also a very empowering truth, because when you work through your own fears, judgment, and shame with your voice, and when you fully find what it is you want to say and express, everything else becomes irrelevant. It doesn't matter who you're in front of, whether they're going to judge you or not. It doesn't matter what your environment you're in. It doesn't matter whether people agree with the truth that you speak or not. What matters is that you feel safe enough within yourself, you feel judgment-free within yourself, and you don't feel shame about who you truly are. And therefore, what happens around you, or the opinions of what people around you have about you being your true self and speaking your true self, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So my message here is to understand that the safety, the acceptance, the understanding, the openness that you are looking for from other people starts when you find it within yourself. And when you find it within yourself, you can be fully you. You can fully express your voice. You can fully express yourself in any other way. Whatever truth it is that you want to express that you're holding on to because of this environment, it's within you, and the truth and the acceptance and the honesty and the openness to hear that has to start within yourself. And when you start leading with authenticity in this way, the people around you, the circumstances, the environments around you will learn to accept you because that is who you truly are. And even if they don't, it does not matter because you've accepted you. Now, there's a lot of work that comes into this, trust me. I'm years down the line of this and I still struggle with it in some areas. But even just making this video is one of the very things that I've been struggling to put together for years because I've never been able to verbalize what it is the struggle is. But now it makes sense. Now, this story is coming from somebody who was mute outside of their own family home until their teens. I would not speak to family. I would barely speak to friends. I would barely say words in my primary school. And I had this shame of who I was. I had a shame of, partly it was about being female. In my upbringing, there was a lot of understanding that men get to do what they want, men get to express themselves, men get to be able to do, whatever it is they're want to fulfill in their lives. But ultimately, women must follow. Women must do what man wants to do. Women must not have a voice. Women must be spoken to and not heard. Women must kind of follow the crowd. And although those words weren't explicitly said, those were like ancestral beliefs that had been for generations and generations before me and also were affirmed in my upbringing, in other words. And so therefore I didn't speak. I had shame around who I was. I didn't even know who I was. I wasn't allowed the expression or the ability to experiment with that expression in order to find my voice, find who I was. And therefore I was silent for most of my childhood outside of my home. And the only time I really became able to be expressive or speak to start with was in an environment I was comfortable. In an environment where if I made a fool of myself, it didn't really matter because those people won't really judge me. But that just meant the judgment was within myself still, because no matter who I was around or the people that I was around that I thought would judge me, I would therefore not fully express myself. And that was because I was fearful of the fact that I would also judge myself. And because I was judging myself, I was fearful they would also judge me. So it becomes like this cycle, which is like if you have this feeling within yourself, that's what you're going to find outside. And ultimately, that's the frequency and energy you give off. If you judge yourself, others will judge you. But yeah, the ultimate point here is that this came from silence in my life. I couldn't find my voice. I didn't understand who I was. Any expression I tried to do, even when it came to things like art, dance, tattoos, like any kind of expression of self, of truth, judged. And that was because I was partly judging myself too. But now I'm in a place where I understand that expression is my truth. Whatever expression is to come and voice is to come is my truth. And I accept that. I own that. I don't have shame on that. I don't have embarrassment about that. because I found who I truly am, which is also a journey. But I also understand that whatever people put onto you is what they're feeling within themselves. So it's also a sense of empathy for understanding that these things are traumas essentially that people are experiencing and projecting onto others. Because if you project it onto yourself and do the work and understand the depths of all those emotions, that's the hard part. And that's why people don't want to do it. And that's why the autopilot is project onto others so I don't have to deal with it. Again, that was a cycle that I got repeated in my younger years. So my message here is, if you are silenced in any way, in work, in life, in relationships, in it by yourself, especially if you are female, because that is my direct relation, but in general, you get to choose when you speak your truth, how you speak your truth, how you express yourself in your life. You get to choose the journey you go on to discover yourself if you've been silenced and unable to find who you are. You get to choose that. And you're not going to let anybody from this day forward tell you otherwise. Now, just bear in mind, this is all from love. This is not in a sense of, I will do what I want to do and then no one else can stop me. There's an element of that there. But the main point here is that you're doing this with love. You're doing this with acceptance. You're doing it with, there's no judgment here. There's no saying somebody is wrong here. It's just, there are objective behaviors that serve people and other behaviors that do not. And when you project, you're not only hindering other people, but you're hindering yourself. So if you go inwards, do the work, find your acceptance, find your self-love, and find your truth, you will start to be able to understand and accept your truth, whether that is in work, your relationships, the rest of your life, whatever it looks like, your finances, whatever truth it is you want to speak, you can find it. You get the permission to find it. You get the permission to express it. It is your choice when and where to express it. And you are allowed, this is your permission, you are allowed to speak your authentic truth.